Welcome to the Dice Tower, a series of video reviews about board and card games. Here are your hosts, Tom Vassell and Sam Healy.
Today we're taking a look at the reprint from Pandasaurus of Tammany Hall. Pandasaurus is a company that's taking older games and reprinting them. They're doing it to they did it to this one. They're doing it to the Great Fire of London. They're doing it to Lost Valley. Woo! But we're taking a look here at Tammany Hall. Now, many times when we review these reprints, we compare them to the original one. We have played the original one, but not really able to compare differences as far as I can tell. And I've asked people who really like Tammany Hall. This is essentially the same game with some, rules, rewrites to make it understandable, highly upgraded components. So if you already know Tammany Hall, this is the same game, just nicer. But we're going to talk about it for people who've never played the game before. Ready, Irish?
Absolutely.
Here we go. So here's the board. It's broken up into many different districts. The different districts are numbered, and they are broken into different zones. We have Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3. And at the top of the board, you'll see a track here. This is basically a time track, but it's a year track. And after every 4 years, there's going to be an election in the different zones on the board. And we're not going to have an election in all the zones at the very beginning of the game, but as the game progresses, you'll add Zone 2 and add Zone 3. And it also depends on how many players are in the game. For example, in a 3-player game, I'm only going to put out these immigrant cubes in Zone 1. I just put them out randomly in one in each of these zones here that's on the board. Now, these immigrants will stand for folks from different backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds. The green cubes are Irish, white cubes are English, orange cubes are German, and blue cubes are Italian. And what you're trying to do is curry favor with those different folks so that at the end of each of the 4 years, they will vote for you. Each player is going to have a pile of ward bosses of their color. And you're going to be putting these guys out on the board. And on your turn, you can essentially put out 2 of these ward bosses. You can put them in the same spot, or you can put them in 2 different spots, or you could put out just one of them, and then you can bring in one of the immigrants who is down here in the castle gardens. These are new immigrants coming into the area. And when you bring these immigrants in, you can put it in one of the wards that's out there, and when you do so, you will then get a chip of favor. So now here I brought an Italian and I helped him get in the country, and now I have some favor with the Italians. And there's a lot of chips of each of the 4 colors here, and the game comes with little stickers to put on them with their flags from this time period, and you can curry favor by bringing those people in. But you do that at the expense of not putting out 2 of these. You can only put out 1 of them. Also, during later turns of the game, players will be able to slander one another. Each player starts with 3 black slander chips, and you'll be able to use these to get rid of someone else's ward boss from an area, but you will have to spend political favor that you have in that area, and you can even do it in 2 spots, but then you'd have to spend more political favor. These chips are worth 1 victory point at the end of the game, so it's up to you whether you will play nice and save them for victory points, or whether you'll go after other players to kick them out. So the game will progress as players are putting out their different bosses and the ward bosses in the different areas. And after 4 years, we will then have an election. An election is pretty simple. We start in Ward 1 and we just progress. We follow these green arrows to show how which ward is being voted on next, and whoever has the most political clout in one of these is going to win. But how does that work? Well, let's take this one here, for example. Let's say we're going to be voting on Ward 1, and there happens to be 1 Italian and 1 Irish immigrant in there. Purple has 1, red has 1. They can then both bid, basically, secretly in their fist. They can vote political clout that they have gained that is either Irish or Italian. They don't have to bid any, but what they're going to do then is reveal how many that they have in their hand, which will be lost to them because they're utilizing their political clout, and they add that to the number of ward bosses they have there, and whoever has the most wins that district. If you win a district, then everyone else is removed, and all your ward bosses except one are removed, and that's to show now that you control that district. Although in the next election you might not. If there's a tie, and ties will happen frequently, then everybody is removed and nobody gets it. Now these first 4 districts also give you a special benefit for winning them. This lets you put an immigrant cube out, 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4. 4 here, I'm sorry, and 7, number 7 over there. Each of those allow you to get a free political chip. So you go through and you add all these together, and then you see who has the most. You look at all the zones that everybody controls, and whoever has the most Irish will put one of their people there. Whoever has the most English, and maybe it's a tie, so then 2 people put it there. And you want to have the most of a certain one, because if you do, you'll get 3 more political chips of that type. You also will count all the wards on the board, and whoever has controlled the most wards on the board becomes the mayor. Now, becoming the mayor is a great thing because it gives you 3 extra victory points. Also, there are 4 other city offices. There's the deputy mayor, the chief of police, the council president, and the precinct chairman. And you give these to the other players. You can pick which one you give the other players. If you're playing with less than 5, you don't even have to give one of them out. You can give these to the other people. Each of these has a special ability that players can use once per year. It's also listed over here on the board. For example, the deputy mayor can take a political favor chip of any color. The chief of police can arrest or remove one of the immigrant cubes from a certain area. So it's an interesting area control game because, let's say, for example, we're down here and it's red versus purple, and we have some Italians and we have some Germans there, and red has piles of English political clout chips. That means nothing. He can't use them there. If you have an immigrant of every color in one of the regions, then that's a pretty powerful region in the sense that you can use any chips you want. But it does affect how clout works. And you also want to control regions that have lots of the different immigrants in them, because then you can be the leader of that culture, of that faction, and you'll get more chips for the next round. At the end of the game, after the fourth election, we will add up all the victory points that you scored during the course of the game, plus bonus victory points for slander that you didn't use, and whoever has the most victory points is the winner. Interestingly enough, this is a period of history that I find really interesting, and yet I don't really know a whole lot about. I really should read some more books on it, because I find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think that this game does a really good job at bringing historical flavor to it. I mean, it is an area control game where you're trying to control the areas on the board. Mm-hmm. But it feels like, I don't know how to explain it. It feels like you're kicking immigrants around and, inviting immigrants into your neighborhood and trying to be the boss, the political bosses.
Right.
So I thought that was a good thing of the game.
Yeah, and I'm right there with it. I loved the thing that I mean, it's an area control game, like you said. That's fine. There's 100 million area, not really, but
there's about 50 million.
Hyperbole.
Let's not exaggerate.
I'm that word. I'm over-exaggerating. There's 1,000,001 area control games out there, but this one has the historical theme that really fits the area control mechanic, having all of those different precinct bosses and stuff like that.
But for Sam, the historical theme is actually detracting, and I'll tell you why. Because he likes the Irish so much that even if they're not the best to take, he can't help himself.
I'm going to take them anyway.
Yes, I know it did you well, but it won't always work out that way. It won't always work out that way. One thing you got to realize about this game, area control games by nature are not the most pleasant of affairs. They're not kumbaya, sit around the fire, hold hands.
Absolutely not.
But this one is really mean.
Yes.
I mean, really mean. In fact, the game encourages you to be mean because it gives you ways to slander your opponents. Mm-hmm. It gives you, you're constantly taking over. The board fills up fast.
Yes.
And you're saying, all right, well, you know what? I'm taking this from you. And no, really? Well, I'm taking this from you. And there's, at the end of the game, especially in the last turn, there is a ton of taking this from you, taking this from you. Why would you attack me when you know that Bob is winning the game type situation? And if you don't like that, you won't like this. But if you strive, if you live for that where you make other people feel a little bit stressed out because you're coming after them, then Tammany Hall's for you.
Right down your alley. Right down your alley. This is definitely a go for the throat. Try to slice the jugular in more ways than one. And that's really what I kind of liked about it. I usually don't enjoy those kind of game. Absolutely. I think there needs to be some type of civility that counterbalances the nastiness, but the civility is lacking in Tammany Hall. You really just go out for your opponents and do the best that you possibly can to keep them under the heel of your boot as much as possible. And that's one of the things I liked about it. That, coupled with the historical flair of it, reached out and caught my heart.
Okay. No,
I'm being honest. I'm just trying to make it look...
Even though Sam said there was 1,000,001 area control games, there really isn't that many good ones.
True.
It did seem like in the late 90s that there was a lot of area control games. Nowadays, there's very few of them, it seems. And this one I thought worked really well. It's going to be daunting. I think someone who has played before is going to beat all up someone who's new, because they kind of know how the game has a very strong flow. It's not a game that plays the same the whole way through. It starts out a little slow and then gets more exciting, and I think ends pretty strong.
Not necessarily, though, because if you have 2 or 3 experienced players and one guy that it's his first time, that guy can walk away with a win because the other 3 are really taking after each other. And so
that's true.
In there. So not always.
But what I'm saying is, I think you'll get better at this as you play it.
Yes, that's very true.
And there's a lot of games we talk about these days where we talk about and say, oh, this game was very tactical, but in each turn it changed. This one actually, I think, has a high level of strategy, where when you do your things, the very first turn of the game, what you do affects you the rest of the game, I think.
Yeah.
If you control certain regions that give you the bonuses that you can use in other regions, that can really make a big difference. If you go for different immigrants, you don't know how everything's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think you can still set up a pretty solid strategy, which I think is a good thing.
Yes, you can set a solid strategy. However, just like with almost any other game, that strategy can be thwarted. So you can't go, all eggs in one basket from the beginning of the game, because you'll have to change your game plan from time to time, because what other people do are going to affect you, and sometimes it will really surprise you. So it's a game that I think has a lot of healthy complexity to it. Makes you want to think, but it's not menial decisions that you're having to make. It's game changing.
All right, so I'm going to give this one cane and 1 old-fashioned pistol up. I think it's very good. I have to kind of get in a roll up my sleeves type of mood to play it.
That's true.
If I'm kind of in a passive mood, I don't know if we're going to play Tammany Hall.
Right.
But if I'm ready to go toe-to-toe with the other players, this is the opposite of a cooperative game.
Yeah, the antithesis of a cooperative game. I'm going to go ahead and give this 2 historically rusted thumbs up.
What?
I don't know what that means, but
I don't think anyone does.
2 thumbs up when it's all said and done. The historical flair, player interaction, area control, seamlessly are put together, and this is a real gem.
Woo!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.